Hi guys, in the last few years we have learned how important independence can be for us, for our families to get out of the lockdowns and out of the common space that we most of the time live in. And a lot of people have taken camping or RVing or those kind of activities, getting out into nature up to basically enjoy themselves together in community and with families. But there needs to be a place to go to, and our guest, Sam Wilson, is actually an expert on how can you use RV parks and RV resorts as one specific form of real estate investing. I'm sure you will be curious to learn how that works, how you can be part of it, and how we can all combine the joy of being in the outdoors and at the same time being invested in those kind of places. Hello and welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. Today's episode, we're going to talk about a little bit of different stuff, but still related to real estate. And we have an awesome guest. We have Sam Wilson with us. Hey, Sam, thanks for coming for the show.
Hey, Axel, thanks for having me. Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. And can you tell us a little bit what you're doing these days and how you got there?
Yeah, I can. That's a long answer. What am I doing these days? There's two things I am very up to my elbows in, and that's in the RV resort business and then also in the laundry business. So we're very busy right now. We've got expansion plans really for both of those niches, and it's pretty exciting to see what's on the horizon. How I got here. Oh, I'll try to make this 20 seconds or less. Always been an entrepreneur. I grew up in a very poor family. We figured out early on how to provide for ourselves. It's just, working hard was something that was ingrained from birth because we didn't have anything. So you had no choice but to go out and work hard. I get asked that a lot. Why do you work so hard? It's like, well, because I'm hungry. Like, that's been my story my whole life. Why shouldn't we work? It's part of what we do. So yeah, that said, always been an entrepreneur and, sold a business a decade ago. Didn't know what to do next in life. I say it was the good Lord having mercy on an idiot. I bought a foreclosure. I made a bunch of money on it. I said, oh, what's this real estate thing? And then here we are 10 years later, and many iterations of the real estate game, as many of us, go through into what we are now buying and working on.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And I always say, success, whether it's through your own work or through helping other people be successful, is kind of like an addictive thing, right? And partially because at least, and I'm sure you would say something similar, I really always feel very blessed, not from a money perspective, but from the impact perspective, right? When somebody is actually really showing enormous grace and gratefulness for what they thought they couldn't do. And then by giving them the help, they actually were able to do it and oftentimes be really amazed about it. I've never been able to put a number on that, but that emotional exchange is just really amazing. And then you want more of it, right? That's what I mean by addictiveness.
Right.
So I
Right.
have to ask you something, and maybe I'm mixing two different things up here, but when I first, well, actually not first, but when I got a little bit more into, how can I help other people instead of just myself, I listened pretty vividly and intensely to the stuff when Bigger Pockets came out first.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon Turner always made the point that, well, the thing with trailer parks is what he used to call it, is that for some reason legally there can't be any new ones. So can you say a little bit about that? Because I was always wondering, wanted to ask somebody who's in that business, is that really true, or how does that really work?
Yeah, and I can't speak to that directly because I'm not in the mobile home community space.
Yeah.
RV resorts, they function in their own right. There's some parallels, but they're two totally different asset classes. So I can't say specifically. I do know that generally most municipalities are opposed to it. Getting them, the cost to build is cost prohibitive. There's just a lot of opposition. I think part of it's the stigma that surrounds it. So a lot of opposition from City Hall on new developments on that front. And then even listening to experts in the space, which I am not, but somebody like Frank Rolfe, he said the other day I was talking to him and he said, man, he goes, just don't build new. He goes, just don't do it. It's cost prohibitive. And this guy is one of the largest mobile home community owners in the country. He said, just don't do it. It's just doesn't pencil out. Like, well,
yeah, that's really cool because I wanted our audience to have that distinction. So when we go to RV park, is it basically exclusive, or could we imagine RV to also include like camping, or like, I don't know if you know the crazy Europeans, they call that camping home. Is not really an RV, that is kind of self-driving, but you're pulling it kind of like behind. I know some people call it a toy hauler here in some sense, but in Europe, they have these camping homes basically where everything that an RV has is pulled behind you, kind of like a fifth wheel. It's not as big as that. But the beauty is then you can basically unhook it, put it up like on a campground, and then you still have your vehicle to explore and do everything, which with an RV, I'm still dreaming to getting one, but I also think about that, well, does it have to be big enough to pull like something behind it? Or then I see these crazy YouTube videos where they are big enough to put the little car inside. But
Right.
can you give us a little bit of like what is what and how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, there's an option for every taste out there. Everything from pop-up trailers to fifth wheels, like you're saying, and these can be really luxurious.
Yeah.
I mean, really nice fifth wheels, really nice RVs. There's RVs that are much nicer than my own home, but they span the gamut from, little Class C 20 footers all the way to, 40, 43 foot long, Class A RVs with marble floors. I mean, every option is out there. When it comes to the RV resorts, I guess that was a question maybe I think I heard in there, which is like
compared to like campgrounds, like because I think some people from either their youth or just because they like to explore may have stopped like in some kind of national park or something like that on a campground. And at least I believe, and I know for a fact in Europe, it's clearly distinguished between the two. There are very few where you can do both, but maybe you can educate us a little how that works here.
Yeah, it really depends on one who owns it. Like that's the first thing is in what we buy, we do not allow camping on site. It's just not the demographic we want to attract. I'm not opposed to camping. I grew up, that's all we could afford when we were growing up was to go to a campground for vacation and take our old ratty, used tents. But that said, there are RV parks with campground components to it. There are certainly strictly RV parks. There are really, really nice RV parks where it's like, okay, all the $1 million rigs sit up front and then, all the poor folks have to drive around back and they hide it. Well, I'm dead serious.
I believe you.
I have 3 small kids. They are 6, 4, and 2. And I've got a 20-year-old RV and I'm not upgrading because you know what? I don't care if they spill their Cheerios in the seat. I can vacuum it up. I'm not worried about it. But they put those 20-year-old RVs around the back down the hill and they're like, nah, you can't park up front. You're too old. And so, you've got all these different classes of RVs and really, so the campgrounds are as varied as the RV models themselves. For us, the niche that we've picked is we said, okay, one, it has to be a destination. I want to differentiate a destination from an RV park. Right. An RV park could be somewhere in the middle of the flyover states. It could be, the middle of Kansas down I-70, and it's just a place to stop for the night, park, rest your head, plug in, get electricity and water, and, take a shower and then go to bed and then keep on heading down the highway. We don't want that. The reason we don't want it, one, is because obviously gas prices are just astronomical. I can't imagine what they are in San Diego, where you are, Axel.
Well, I've seen the first ones with $6 a gallon now.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We're still in the 4s here in Memphis, Tennessee. I don't see that coming back down. That said, I think the whole across the country travel in large automobiles like that people are going to pull back. They just simply have to. But we want a destination. So we want something where there's a natural draw, either at the location itself or nearby. So it's something where it's, people can come bring their RV. They're going to stay for 2 or 3 days. They may never leave the premises. We have everything from a camp store to, game rooms to pool to pickleball courts, tennis courts, fishing, whatever it is. There needs to be a water draw. That's another one of our criteria. There needs to be a water draw to the facility. But we're looking for a place where families can come and stay and not necessarily have to leave. That's different than your just overnight, stop and go place. The other cool thing about, and again, there's all kinds of different RV resorts out there. The other cool thing about the RV resort space is that it has a long-term component to it, which is surprising, in that, and this is why I say it parallels mobile home communities, in that people will lease a space for a year. So they'll sign. I was
just about to ask you if I like the resort, if it's a matter of, okay, I have maybe some outdoor entertainment and maybe close to other things, and I can basically stay and live in my RV, but my home is like an hour, 2, 3 away. I can maybe bring it there once and then come, I don't know, for a weekend or for like summer or whatever it might be.
Bingo. You hit it right on the head. And that's really popular. I mean, because think about it. It's if you want something, I was looking at a resort up in the mountains of Colorado the other day. And it's like, well, this is a really, really cool spot. And why not bring your RV, leave it here for the season, and then you can just come back and forth. You're 3 hours away. It's like, well, hey, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to go mountain biking and go fishing. I'm going to play on the lake. And then the kids and I are going to do whatever else it is, go hiking in the mountains. And then your rig is parked. you've solved your really expensive gas problem, maybe not entirely, but you're not hauling at least your RV back and
Well,
forth.
you
And then
can
you can have
get your Tesla to come and visit your RV, right?
that's funny. Yes, absolutely. That's actually, you bring that up. That's one of the things that we problem we're trying to solve right now in the space is the utility bill back program, which is where it's like if people are bringing their Teslas and charging their Teslas now at these sites, it's like, oh my gosh, that's going to kill our bottom line. So we're figuring out ways to install meters that can be checked in and checked out. So let's say somebody comes just for a weekend, but they do bring their Tesla with them and they do plug it in. Well, it's like, okay, well, now you're going to get billed back right on your credit card for the electricity use. So anyway,
I've actually heard a cool thing, maybe, slightly off topic, but I still
yeah,
want to dig further into the RV resorts. Is that somebody, again, I have to say, I know a lot of people in Europe just because I'm a little more connected to that space with the
yeah.
European community, even though all my real estate and everything is here in the US. But he said a cool thing. First, he put as many solar panels on the top of his RV as he could just to be self-sustaining
Huh,
because you can't plug in everywhere,
right.
and then lithium batteries in the bottom in one of the drawer kind of thingies. But then he said, exactly like you were just describing, right? Like, I like to have it in a nice spot like in southern Germany, and I have a Tesla. So guess what I did? I'm like, what the hell? What are you talking about? He said, well, I asked Tesla if I could buy a power wall. And so my RV is sitting there the whole week. The panels keep producing, but the batteries in the RV are full because we're not using anything. So guess what? They charged the power wall. It cost me 5,000 euros or something. And when
Wow.
I get there, I just plug into my power wall, and I can basically get 2 full charges for the car from the power wall and drive back with a fully charged car
Oh, wow.
and enjoy it like the weekend or extended weekend. I'm like, wow, that's actually really cool because you basically let the sun pay for everything, so to speak.
Right.
Now, admittedly, the Powerwall has an initial investment, but I think his RV was like 250,000. So I don't think he was hurting too much on the 5 grand for the Powerwall.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that's really cool. I love that. Absolutely love that. So yeah, I mean that long-term component's a cool part of the space, like you're saying, in that it's not somebody that stays there full time. They pay an annual lease, but they're only there a few days, maybe a week at most. And so you get a great tenant that's not there very often that pays on time. It's like, oh, this is like taking a mobile home community and then just, ratcheting it up a few notches so you get a much better deal altogether as as the property owner.
Absolutely. And I could think of so many like cool things, in a community like that where nobody has the expectation. It's like, a 5-star resort from a facility perspective. But I've seen like ideas lately where they said, okay, can we operate this thing like a microgrid? Right? Like where you're basically collecting as a community the electricity that falls on the grounds, and everybody has stored it. And yes, you have to pay basically for kind of like almost like a membership, but
Mm,
then everybody benefits. You're not dependent on the utilities keep cranking up your bills. And they now started doing the same thing with water, right?
mm,
Because I mean, if you think about it, they're not only from the panels, but from other stuff, you can collect the water.
right.
And if you have enough of it, it actually is worth putting some systems in that clean it to drinking water quality. And then you have literally rainwater as your drinking water, which is also pretty cool, right? And so all these kind of things, I think there are great ideas. But I think what people might be interested in, not to just look at it from an entertainment or enjoyment perspective, we also want to talk a little bit about what's the potential investment opportunity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's amazing. Right now is a good time for the RV resort space. It's something where it was already on its way up in 2019. The outdoor hospitality space had seen an incredible uptick in interest. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and it just threw gasoline on a fire. So, just to give you some stats that I think these paint the picture really well, is that in 2020, we had roughly 350,000 new RV deliveries here in the US. In 2021, we had 600,000. And in 2022, we're on track already again for another 600,000 new deliveries. And I mean, that's just a wild increase. I mean, it's a 43% increase year over year from 20 to 21. And we just don't see that backing off. The other cool thing about it is that even if it does back off, that's still 1.2 million new RVs that are getting absorbed into the existing RV resort, space. And again, not everybody who owns an RV. I own an RV and I don't stay at RV resorts very often. But so that's not to say that everyone who owns one uses one, but it certainly just gives a good kind of broad perspective that says, hey, there is incredible interest in this space. So that's on the kind of the supply side, if you will, of like what's coming into the market.
Right.
The demand side, obviously, fueled by that supply side. But then also when you look at what is there in the existing stock as far as RV resorts, it's a very fragmented industry. So it's mostly mom and pop owned. It's usually they own one asset. There is just humongous room for operational improvements. So, I mean, the park we just bought had a website. It might have been Axel from 1998. There was a Hotmail address, literally a Hotmail email address you had to send, like Axel123 at hotmail.com and he'll get you booked. And you're like, oh my gosh, like what, we can do online booking these days. So, I mean, it's small stuff like that are just simple operational improvements. There's software. It's a software investment, but it's not terribly complicated. Things like online booking, adding dynamic pricing. I mean, the resort had the same price on April 4th as it did on July 4th. Well, I mean, anybody with 2 cents of business would say, gosh, July 4th is going to be your busiest weekend of the year. Because it's the busiest, it should also be the weekend that everybody pays the most to stay there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like the Airbnb idea, right? They run like the things, and there's even a tool that my short-term rental clients and myself using called AirDNA, which is actually analyzing economic activity, holidays, and all of that, and plots basically a curve for the starting position to say, where would I put my pricing for this particular asset in this particular location? And then you can say, okay, well, I keep that up to 3 weeks before the date for that particular house or lot or apartment studio. And I guess it would also theoretically work for your operations. And if nobody has booked it, then you can say, okay, if you're booking now up to 2 weeks before, you get 5% off and then 10% off and then maybe 20% off, which is still better than having it empty, right? So yeah, that stuff exists for sure. And the cool thing that I'm finding is cross-utilization is a real benefit, I believe. It shouldn't always be the first step to say we need to invent something when others basically do it already just for a slightly different use, right? So now, when you say we bought one, can you say a little bit of who is we and how can people like myself and our audience kind of get into the deal?
Yeah, as well. I mean, that deal is, already closed and everything we've done.
No, I mean, like in general.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear about our next opportunities, of course, you can go to brickeninvestmentgroup.com and just join the Bricken Investor Club. I mean,
cool. Yeah.
That's the only place I send out opportunities is through the Bricken Investor Club. So again, that's Bricken, BRICKEN, investmentgroup.com. So yeah, that's how you hear about what it is, that we're doing and what we're getting involved in. But you wanted to hear more about this last deal we closed, I think.
Not just fundamentally, does it work like a syndication, or does somebody buy a membership, or do you have any form of ownership? And do you need to have the equivalent of the price of an RV, or,
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we've syndicated everything we've done up to this point in time.
Okay.
So usually our minimum investments is 50 grand. I think that's pretty standard across the syndication space. I think our average investor probably puts in 80 or 100, to be honest. I haven't gone back and re-looked at it here in the last few months. But yeah, I mean, it's a syndication model. People come in as a limited partner. Obviously there's no responsibilities day to day, things like that. So, I mean, it's something that if your listeners aren't familiar with the syndication model.
I think they are, but maybe you can give a little comparison between like an RV resort syndication versus, let's say, like a multifamily or so.
They function practically the same way. It's really just a different asset. I actually do own some multifamily assets as well. But it is, fundamentally, it's the same structure. There may be some nuances to each of them. But, if it's a syndication, you come in as a limited partner, it is just swapping assets, multifamily or.
How about performance? Any things you can say about that?
Yeah, this is the cool thing. And we were talking about opportunities in the space because it's so fragmented and because it just, again, most of these are single asset owned. They're just not professionally managed or run. And we haven't seen a large flight of institutional capital into this space yet. I say we are where mobile home parks were 5 or 8 years ago. If anybody was paying attention or knows kind of the trajectory that mobile home parks have taken, it's kind of followed multifamily in its own right, in that it was on its way up. And then, you can buy a mobile home parks are trading in the 5 to 6 cap rate right now. We're finding right now we can buy anywhere from 8 to 13 cap in the RV resort space, which is just, it's amazing. There's reasons for that. It is more operationally complex. And that's one of the opportunities we see in this space is that it is operationally complex. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. It does require more staff. There is some maintenance, that's involved in it. But what we see is the opportunity in that, in the sense that there's all these different levers we can pull to drive revenue. I mean, everything, even down to simple stuff like booking fees. I mean, this resort we just bought, it's like, oh, okay, well, for every new booking, we charge a $3 or a $5 booking fee. Okay, well, that doesn't make it a humongous difference in the end, but if it generates another $10,000 of income on the property that year and the place trades at a 10 cap, well, we just added $100,000 in value out of this property without really any hard work.
I mean, I can tell you, and like this is a podcast, not really an advice show or anything like that. But if I were to get involved, like from an investment general partner kind of thing, I would immediately check out what the crazy Italians are doing with their campgrounds. It is unreal. I mean, literally from like contests about who has the best Christmas lighting or 4th of July lighting, Easter lighting, Thanksgiving lighting and stuff. And they put out a prize, but for people, they pay basically a participation fee. If people don't want to shower in the RV, they have a nice like shower thingy set up, really pretty, almost like a spa. So you go to the shower, you pay anywhere between €1 and €2 for 5 minutes of water, basically warm water. And so that's a revenue source. Some people have tiny little washing machines in their RVs, but they much rather go and do a big load. So they pay for that, and they pay way more than one at home would cost. Then they attach a spa, so the shower is cool. Then you go and get massage, and it keeps going and going and going. They have restaurants, they have entertainment, they have local artists coming in, and people pay a fee to have entertainment as a group, contests, animators for the kids. I mean, like I said, I don't just call them crazy Italians for nothing. The stuff that they have come up with for campgrounds in the last few years is amazing. And I only know about it because friends tell me, hey, I went to this one and I've never seen something like this. And then I went to this one, they made a contest about like sandcastle building, right? Wow. You had to pay a fee to actually get in. It's kind of...
That's a hoot. And that's it. The sky's the limit on how, and what you want to do at these resorts. And I think that's the fun part about it. So yeah, the cash on cash returns is something else I like to look at on these. In that what we're looking at, I'm not interested in anything that doesn't throw off a double-digit cash on cash return. So if it doesn't throw off at least 10%, I really don't want to be part of it. And it needs to really do it out of the gate. I mean, because they're cash flow intense businesses, which is, I think, the other cool part about it. And I think right now people are really, every investor I talk to is becoming less and less concerned with an equity multiple and becoming more and more concerned with, does it produce an income? So that at least been my
absolutely. And especially in this kind of inflationary environment right now, you kind of have to see how can I preserve the buying power of my money, right? Like if we were still at the gold standard, nobody would care about it because it wouldn't change, right? But since 71, we're not. And the thing is, I mean, we could go in a long philosophical discussion why it's crazy that the government thinks the cure of all things is to print more money, but that's what seems to be en vogue right now in the last 10 years. And so, so for anybody who says, okay, I want to build a legacy, I want to do something long term. And I think what you're doing is so awesome because it also has a fun factor, right? Like, I mean, you can say, okay, it's fun to own like single families or duplexes, triplex, or even to be able to say, I own 100 doors in a multifamily.
Right.
But how cool is it to say, hey, I have ownership in this RV resort, and if we want to go, we can go and we can have fun for however long we want, right? Not just because it's generally there, but it's always a little different, at least to me. You can say, yeah, and I own a little piece.
Right. And that's something we always offer to our investors is that, hey, if you're a limited partner in a deal, you can always go stay at the resorts for free. Just tell us you're coming.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, this is one thing I wanted to ask again. This is a development they did in Europe, is that oftentimes they find out that family members would love to come along. And theoretically, these RVs nowadays sleep a bunch of people.
Right.
But not necessarily really in a comfortable way when you're parked, right? If you're just kind of like on the road and you want to go 2,000 miles, then it's okay. And you can do your bunk back up high and what have you. But, if a family, let's say with parents comes along, then the family stays in the RV. And a lot of these spots that are more common in Europe, they have these little sheds or cabins or whatever you want to call them, where the people basically can come, 8 people in the RV, 5 sleep in the RV, and then mom and dad sleep in the cabin or something like that, right?
Yes. In the resort we just bought, we have cabins on site. There's also, we're adding glamping to it.
Oh yeah, that's a cool thing too. Yeah, glamping is like a crazy thing.
Yeah, so we're adding glamping. And then the other term you're looking for here, they call them park models. Another thing that is common in the industry is that we would go out and say, buy 5 really nice Class A RVs, and we would park them and set them up there, and they'd be park models. And so then you could come and rent them out just like a hotel room. and you get your own. So maybe the whole family does come and they take 3 sites away, but then they got a park model just around the corner there that they come and stay in as well. So actually a rental of park models, and those park models don't move, is a pretty common thing as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And now I have to be like unusually selfish. I'm normally not doing this on a podcast, but I want to pick your brain for a moment. I said
Sure.
before we started recording that that's kind of like my personal dream, as maybe one of my last bigger engagements is when you say you can have park models and they can be RVs.
Mhm.
Do you see any hindrance to make those tiny homes?
I think that's a really cool idea. And the only hang up I think that you may run into would be whatever the local codes and whatever the municipality would allow. So if you can build in a lot of these, I'm trying to think of the one that we just bought. It's in a smaller town. I don't know. I'd have to look at it and see. I mean, it's a cool idea.
I mean, I've been following this stuff a little bit on YouTube, obviously, for a bunch of years. And the one thing that I find that seems to be common from a code perspective is that to be qualified as a tiny home, it still needs to be possible to haul it. Basically, it has to have like an axle and wheels, and needs to be able to be hooked up to either a truck or like not necessarily pickup truck, could also be something bigger, but it needs to stay, like basically road legal, so to speak. So that limits the width and the length and the height and all that kind of stuff. But what it makes it cool is one of the things that I found in our own research is that there's a clear distinction, even if you have just a normal house on a property and you look into code, what is considered a permanent structure and what is called movable or, non-permanent structure. And anything that you can basically almost like a mobile home, but on a somewhat smaller scale, that you can, maybe not every day, but reasonably with not too much effort, move away again.
Right.
Would fall into that. And I've always thought, well, a tiny home is actually, in my mind, closer to a large RV than a mobile home.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know, maybe not where you are, but here in the Midwest, or actually I grew up in the Midwest, there were these things called riverboats, the gambling riverboat.
Yeah. I mean, Lake Powell is full of them, right?
Okay, so Lake Powell's full of them. But I mean, the funny thing is that they put all these riverboats, and they even got them to and so they were all complying with the laws, and they even got them to a point where they were building these giant tubs out in the middle of fields. And they're putting a boat in the middle of a field and saying, well, it floats and it's on water, so we're complying with laws. So I'm sure we can find a way to make tiny homes comply and be like, what? It's on wheels. It's movable. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, exactly.
You could move it. So yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. We just got to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I've just, this is always for me, because when you ask, how can you reduce your footprint, be environmentally friendly, but still retain quality of life and some fun, I think that's kind of like a really nice compromise. And you don't need to have like, what are these things, like 7-liter, 8-cylinder diesel engine using like 2 gallons per mile or something like that.
It's pretty close to that. Yeah, it's pretty close. You hit it on the head.
So if you want to be a little bit on the other end of the spectrum, but not give up all the creature comforts, right? So.
Absolutely. And I think that's funny you say that, because you're not the only one thinking that way. There's a lot of people, myself included, man, I would go to a tiny home in a heartbeat. I hate stuff. And I think that's probably my generation and younger is becoming less and less stuff and acquisition focused and more experience focused. And I'm sure we'll see a shift more towards that.
Absolutely. I see this too in our community of clients, is because there are 2 ways to look at depreciation. You can celebrate it or you can hate it, right? Like you celebrate it when you own a real asset, whether it's an RV resort or duplex or anything like that. Own. I'm not saying just having preferred shares in it, but actually own it.
Right.
And then you have depreciation when you go and buy some piece of crap, excuse my French, and know at the moment that you leave the store, it's already lost 30%. And 2 or 3 years later, when you go to Goodwill or whatever that kind of store is called in your area, they basically say you want money for it or you're just going to donate it, right?
Right. Right. That's exactly
it. So that I think there is way too much of that latter part of depreciation where we're consuming because we being told that the amount of consumption is somehow an indication of our success, where I'm always saying the real sign of success is when you can basically enjoy your time, the time that you have on this planet, without having to exchange time for money, meaning cash flow. And so that's why I'm always excited to talk to people who do something a little unusual, because that's something you said, 10 handle or something like that. Can you give us a little bit of an example what people who would invest with you actually can generate in cash flow?
Yeah. And again, every deal, has its own parameters, so I can only tell you, because I invest obviously in every deal that we do myself. So my own personal metrics are, it has to have a double digit cash on cash return.
Right.
And maybe you don't hit that year one, maybe you do, but say over a 5 or a 7 year hold, it has to at least throw off 10%. It also, in this asset class, in RV resort, if we were to ever sell it, it needs to be in the mid 20s on an IRR basis. If I don't hit those kind of two metrics, or at least over 20, then I'm probably not interested in it. They are operationally complex. They are a lot of work.
Right. So that would mean, like, if somebody say, okay, well, I'm not the typical guy. I give you 50 grand. I make $600 a month, basically somewhere $500 to $600 a month in that area. And I hope that you keep it and run it well for a long time. And if it ever sells, then I get 100 back or something like that.
Right. And the idea, for me is that as we look at these, one of two exits, either A, through a refinance, which we can't even begin to project where refinance, we don't even put it in the underwriting because it's
don't do it right now.
I don't know where rates are going to be in 3 years. If we drive NOI up and we can refinance, ideally we would refinance and give all our investors their money back. And then I would hold it for as long as we can possibly hold it, because I never want to sell the milk cow. And again, if we're able to generate double-digit returns, especially after a refinance, man, then I'm never getting rid of it. I think that's a mistake I made early on in real estate, was that I bought a bunch of real estate, but then, I flipped it all as opposed to holding it. And that was dumb. I should have held it and just collected.
And everybody who's been in the game for a little while tells me that story, and I can say the same thing. The one thing that really saved me a little bit, maybe a slight anecdote, we talked a little bit about, my military service before I got out of it. And that was the military, the Air Force literally said to me, okay, you have to realize that your body is only going to be able to sustain the stress of military jet flying up to a certain age. And they said in the beginning about 40, I lasted until 41. But then the question was, okay, now you have to make a decision. Do you want to stay in what I always called fly a desk, basically, or do you want to get out and see what you want to do with the rest of your life? And for me, typical German, I guess, I just sat down and said, okay, if I were to stay in, it was at the time about another 17 years until I could theoretically retire with a military pension.
Wow.
How many promotions would be reasonably to be expected? How much would I make? And how much do I make if I get out? And the difference came out to be about net $1,500 a month. And I just said to myself, I damn well can do better than $1,500 a month, right? And so I got out and did where we are now, and 20 years later, almost 20 years later. But the point is that having to go through that kind of really important for future in life discussion told me, okay, if you get an asset that performs, that actually pays you something, you really want to ask yourself 2 or 3 or 4 times, does it make sense to let it go just because you can make appreciation on it, right? And so only once, when the deal was just too good, we did that.
Right. And that's it. You have to compare those and say, all right, what's the present value of the future cash flows, and do an analysis on it, and then say, okay, or, can I just take a huge payday today and reinvest it? It's the tough one. But
sorry for interrupting, but that's also, I believe, what the government is actually telling us. If you're willing to forget all the anxiety we have about the government, say, okay, why do they have something like a 1031 exchange? In my view, that's actually the explanation to say, okay, we want you to accumulate assets. If you have one and that made you 200 grand, you sell it and you exchange it tax-free into 4 assets that cost you 200 grand down payment plus financing, but then they make even more cash flow than before. That's a good deal where I said, yeah, okay, I can do that. But if you just say, okay, I want the money so I consume and then give it to Goodwill, not ideal.
Not ideal. Not ideal. No, you said it, man. You absolutely said it.
Yeah. Okay. So one quick thing before we go to our last 2 questions. You also do stuff that is not directly, well, it's kind of real estate, but a little different. What's this thing with the laundry?
It is a passion project of mine and my wife's, to be honest, in that the laundry business is much like the RV business in that it's fragmented. It is not institutionally invested in. Actually, Tide is starting to invest in it, which is really interesting when you see somebody like Tide investing in laundry facilities. The cash on cash returns, again, this goes back to don't sell the milk cow, are north of 30% on our laundromat, which is just an astounding annual return on an investment. It is something where there's huge opportunity to acquire and to build new facilities. So that's what we're embarking upon now, is building new facilities. It's a fun business to be involved in. One, because it is excellent returns, but it's also an interesting opportunity to serve a demographic that doesn't usually get served in the way that we serve them. It's kind of a two-prong. It's like, hey, we can make money while doing good in our neighborhood, which is a lot of fun. So we run a fully staffed facility here. It is, when you walk in, you get greeted. The place is lit up like a Christmas tree 24 hours a day. I mean, it's bright, it's clean. People walk in, they're like, oh my gosh, like, this is a laundromat. Like I usually feel like I'm about to get stabbed when I go in a laundromat. And here we can come in here and there's staff and it's welcoming and there's coffee on and it's like, oh, and there's kids and there's books and there's reading rooms. And it's like, oh, this is a totally different experience than the claw machine in the corner and the dirty soda pops, spilled on the floor and the half broken machines. It's like, no, we're going to produce a really, really cool environment, like an extension of home for people to come in and do their laundry. And again, these facilities work in environments and socioeconomic environments, where they need a laundromat. Like we need a laundromat to get our clothes clean. We can't afford a washer and dryer. Well, we get to serve you in a really cool way. And I think that's been a lot of fun to be part of the community and watch that grow. So that's something that we're really going long in that space as well. So yeah, it's fun. It kind of solves a couple pieces of the equation.
Would it be correct to assume that the model as far as participating is similar from a raising capital?
Yeah, I haven't syndicated one yet. When we start, which we're looking at ground right now, but when we start building these out, yeah, I will absolutely turn around and start syndicating them because I'll be out of cash before I know it. The plans that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. Now, and if you don't want to talk about it, I'm okay with it, but I'm a little bit curious, how much do you see this as kind of perpetuating a societal problem or an economic problem? I totally see the part, and I always even say this when we're talking about with our investors to invest in single families or duplex, not just as an investment and what's the cash on cash and the internal rate of return, but also you're providing a service to a community. But then, laundromat, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is again a different community that can maybe barely afford at least rents in nice properties.
Right.
How do you square that to say, on the one hand, yeah, it makes sense because it provides a service, but on the other hand, it's also kind of like an economic and societal issue that doesn't seem to get better?
Well, yeah, and to a degree, I can't necessarily solve the reasons why they need a laundromat, but I know that if I don't provide a laundromat, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get better or cleaner clothes somewhere else. So I don't feel like I'm feeding a system that creates dependency. I charge them for their laundry, right?
That's why, like in my second life, and maybe if you come along, I think you and I could be awesome partners because I would do the eco-friendly tiny home at reasonable rents, right? Which per square foot could still be attractive. But, if somebody says, okay, I'd rather live in my own little place where I'm my own little queen or king, and I pay you, I don't know, $400 or $500, and I go get my laundry done at Sam's, and we could both be happy campers, literally
sure.
in the literal sense of campers.
I see what you did there. Yeah, and that's it. I don't feel like I'm not giving handouts, to people to where it because I think handouts are the death of society, where it's like that just causes the National Park Service slogan where it's like, don't feed the animals because they'll forget how to hunt for food. Like,
no, absolutely. And I don't mean it that way. I'm just saying, going to more and more luxurious, which I see. I mean, maybe this is more a thing here in California, but if you look at, I came to San Diego the first time in 1985 with the military to the Top Gun program, actually, that what used to be here. And they called it at the time the biggest little city on the West Coast. Because it really acted, and even to some extent, there's still some of it today, where, yes, you were in a relatively metropolitan type area, but everybody was like village folk, so to speak.
Right.
Their whole attitude and everything. Now it's a 2 million people metropolitan area. All the little pieces have grown together in one big blob. But what they have actually created are places where even the smallest thing is $1 million and up. Right. And it's not because they're just price gouging. These places are really nice, a view on the water, and you see the sailboats and all that kind of stuff. But then you have to also say, well, who can actually ever get into that, right? And even rents. I mean, that's why we can't do investments locally, even though I live here, is you could never collect enough rent to be able to have any cash flow in an investment like that. So that part, I think is not the solution. The other side is not the solution to say, let's just get into like Brazilian slums or something like that. And that's why I'm saying, when you can combine the eco-friendliness by just the setup and be willing to say it doesn't have to be bigger and bigger and bigger. I think personally, I'm ranting a little bit, but I think one of the fallacies is that we're telling people, similar to consumption of all this crap in the malls, we're telling people that there is a sign of success when you have more square foot to live in, right? And I really don't think that has anything to do with quality of life. You can have a very beautiful, almost self-sustaining tiny home on 600 square feet. You don't have to have, like, people say, oh, if I move to Texas, I get 4,000 square feet for me and my wife. And said, why do two people need 2,000 square feet each? Is that really necessary? And that would be one way to, I believe, go in the direction to say, we want it nice, we want good quality, we want to take care of you. We can even go to Sam and get the laundry done, but all within reason and still, enjoy life and not have to pay $1 million.
That's it, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yep, you're right.
Cool. Well, I love to be right. Now, two things we always ask at the end is, if you could meet anybody, who would it be and why?
Anybody right now?
Yeah, or past or present.
Past or present, anybody outside of Jesus Christ, who would I want to meet? Maybe.
Yeah, you have to, with him, you have to differentiate before or after,
Right? Probably on both sides of that equation, before and after. I would like to meet, oh man, an interesting figure. Shoot. I think George Washington would be somebody that would be really interesting just to see who that man was. Those are some really smart dudes that did some really noble things. And I think that would be a very compelling figure from history to get a chance to pick his brain. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. And I would be curious when you come back from that trip, let me know. I would be curious because I've met so many people that I idolized. And I feel very blessed that I had the opportunity where when you actually sit down, glass of wine, glass of beer, something like that, barbecue, and you ask them these kind of things, and especially when they got famous for something, but it's been a while. And most of the time they basically told me, number one, it didn't feel like that when it happened. But the real trick is that it doesn't basically influence your thinking or who you believe you are. Right. And so I would be curious, if you meet him, ask one question on my behalf is, do you actually see yourself the way that what we have basically created as the image of your post history, so to speak,
Yeah, probably not, but that's
yeah, I doubt it too. I mean, like my first question to George Washington would be, is that picture right, where you're really having all this gear on in that little boat across the river?
Right? Probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
And his outfit wasn't clean, I promise you that too.
Yeah, that was probably just some artist in the studio putting it all together and hold that pose,
Bingo. You said it, man. You said it. That's awesome.
So talking about that, since that's been a while, if you had a time machine, that's the other question, Sam. If you had a time machine, you could go anywhere, forward, backward, and so forth, and you would still know what you know now. Where would you go and why? You can come back, by the way. You don't have to be there forever.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Man, if I had a time machine, gosh, and can I take a lot of trips? I
would
just
one. You have only one, so it'd make
only one trip. Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I got to choose right now. Where am I going to go? Yeah, that's exactly where I'd go. I would want to be with the disciples when they got the news that Jesus had risen from the dead. I would just want to see it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, wait, what? This is nuts. Okay, like for real? I think that would be a really compelling place and time to be. Yeah, that's probably where I'd go with time.
Yeah, well, you might have said, it wasn't as bad as everybody made it.
What now?
You might have said it's not as bad if you made it through, right?
Right? Yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah, I don't want to belittle it, but, I would be curious as well. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, Sam, it was wonderful talking to you. Now, you mentioned Bricken Investment Group, but any other suggestions on how people can get in touch with you?
That's it. BrickenInvestmentGroup.com/join. Join the Bricken Investor Club. You'll get notified of all of our upcoming opportunities. It's also, I send out a weekly newsletter on Fridays where you can stay kind of in front of what it is that I'm seeing here in the marketplace and what it is that we're working on. So those two are great ways to connect. And through that, you'll get opportunities, obviously, to schedule a call with me as well. And we can talk further about what your investing criteria, desires may be, and happy to chat further about what we're investing in and how you can get involved. So
yeah, that's really cool. And you inspired me. I will definitely ask our little tribe if there's anybody who wants to join me in working with Sam on that eco-friendly tiny home resort.
That would be fun. I would love it.
Well, thanks again for being on the show. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Ideal Investor Show. More info and the links we mentioned during the show are in the show notes, or you can go to our website at idealwealthgrower.com and sign up for the Apple Podcast link. And if you like to talk to me, sign up for a strategy call. Hopefully you want to share what you learned with your network and bring more people in. We are really eager to hear your comments. And until next time, be well, stay safe, and ciao.